Double battles are the standard for the official competitive Pokemon format of VGC, and they allow for some of the coolest strategies because of all the new things possible with two Pokemon. This is due to the unique synergy of their abilities, types, moves, base stats, or something else that specifically work well together, and some Pokemon can make for some especially deadly duos. So in this video, I'll be going through some of the most potent Pokemon duos that have been present at one point or another in the Scarlet and Violet VGC metagame. For each entry, I'll be discussing how and why the two Pokemon function so well together, and the typical moves, abilities, items, and general strategies used, while also discussing some of the common counterplay to them. Also, for fun, I thought it would be cool to recall the names that people have given these duos, and if they don't have one, I'll come up with a name myself. With all that being said, let's look at some of the most potent duos in the Scarlet and Violet VGC metagame. First up, we have Indeedee Female and Armarouge. In Reg A, the first regulation of Scarlet and Violet, Armarouge was one of the most used Pokemon in the format due to its especially strong pairing with Indeedee Female. Both forms of Indeedee get Psychic Surge, an ability that sets up Psychic Terrain upon entry, but due to Indeedee Female's stats being more defensive and having access to the move Follow Me, it is generally the better of the two when paired with Armarouge. At the time, Armarouge was the only Pokemon in the game to have access to the move Expanding Force, an 80 base power, 100% accurate, special attacking Psychic type move that receives a 50% power boost and becomes a spread damaging move if the user is on Psychic Terrain. Psychic Terrain also grants it a separate 30% power boost, and considering that Armarouge has a 125 base special attack stat to work with, and the fact that Indeedee can boost this damage with Helping Hand, these expanding forces will hit insanely hard. Before doing that though, you will need some form of speed control, and Armarouge actually has two ways of pulling that off. The more consistent way is probably with the use of the move Trick Room, which can be set up more easily with Indeedee doing the redirecting with Follow Me. This is especially effective since Psychic Terrain blocks Fake Out and Prankster Taunt, and you could also have Indeedee set up the Trick Room and protect Armarouge if you're hard calling out a double up into Armarouge by your opponent. The other form of speed control is by taking advantage of Armarouge's hidden ability, Weak Armor, and hitting Armarouge with an attack to raise its speed, or even raise its damage output with the weakness policy. Either way, with how well Indeedee can support Armarouge, and how well Armarouge is able to take advantage of Psychic Terrain and Trick Room, this duo is very strong. It has definitely fallen off over the course of Gen 9's meta, with Expanding Force being brought back as a TM, making Armarouge not as unique anymore, and new dark types like the Treasures of Ruin and Incineroar being legal, but this duo was still very strong at one point. I don't know if it ever had a catchy name that caught on, but I'm gonna go with IndeedeeRouge. Next, we have Chien-Pao and Dragonite. Dragonite is a Pokemon that benefits significantly from terrestrialization, as it doesn't have great stab options, but it has one of the highest attack stats of any Pokemon that gets Extreme Speed, the normal type priority move with 80 base power. Chien-Pao is one of the 4 Treasures of Ruin that were all given unique abilities that lower the stats of other Pokemon, and Chien-Pao's ability lowers the defense of all surrounding Pokemon, making it great for going all out on damage. A Choice Band Terra Normal Extreme Speed with Sword of Ruin out to lower defense deals loads of damage, and can even one-shot some common threats like Tornadus unless it has a lot of HP and physical defense investment. If your opponent doesn't have any fairy types, Outrage is even an option, and with Dragonite's high attack stat, Outrage's high base power, and Sword of Ruin out to lower defense, this move is incredibly powerful. Chien-Pao is not only fast, but it also threatens opponents with priority from Sucker Punch. This duo doesn't really like priority blockers like Psychic Surge Indeedee or Armor Tail for Ridgerath, but those Pokemon are both Psychic type, meaning that they are both weak to Dark, one of Chien-Pao's types. Both Chien-Pao and Dragonite also get Ice Spinner, a move that removes the current terrain on the field, allowing them to use their priority again if it is being blocked by Psychic Terrain. This duo probably saw the most success in Reg E, and they are definitely not perfect, as both are weak to Fairy defensively, and don't have great answers to Fairy types offensively, but the raw damage that these two can output is absolute top of the line. PaoNite was probably the most common name I heard for this duo. Next, we have FluChi-Mane and Chi-Yu. Like Chien-Pao, Chi-Yu is another member of the Treasures of Ruin, and its ability lowers the special defense of all surrounding Pokemon. FluChi-Mane is just one of the best Pokemon introduced in Gen 9 period, as it is insanely fast and hits insanely hard on the special side, pairing perfectly well with Chi-Yu's ability. They both get stab spread damage, with Chi-Yu getting Heat Wave and FluChi-Mane getting Dazzling Gleam, and the combination of Fire and Fairy is very strong offensively, as the Steel types that resist Fairy are hit for super effective by Fire, and the Dragon types that resist Fire are hit for super effective by Fairy. Fire is the only single type to resist both Fire and Fairy, but that's where FluChi-Mane and Chi-Yu's other types come in handy, with Dark and Ghost being great for hitting other types for neutral damage. Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball are the go-to Dark and Ghost moves that hit for single target damage, which threaten the types that resist Fire and Fairy. FluChi-Mane is already super fast, but if you want to ensure you'll outspeed everything, you could use a Booster Energy to raise its speed, Icy Wind to lower your opponent's speed, and a Choice Scarf on Chi-Yu to raise its speed. While not a super common strategy, it's also worth mentioning that these two Pokemon both benefit from the Harsh Sunlight, as FluChi-Mane's ability is also activated when exposed to Harsh Sunlight, and Chi-Yu's fire moves will be boosted by Harsh Sunlight. For counterplay, Wide Guard will stop all damage, and that's kind of all I got. This duo is honestly super scary to go up against, and is probably the most hyper-offensive duo on this list, aside from maybe PaoNite. FluChi-Mane was a hilarious name I found for this duo, but let me know what other names you've heard. Next, we have Lilligant and Torkoal. The main strengths of Torkoal are its ability Drought, which sets up the Harsh Sunlight, and access to the move Eruption, a 150 base power, 100% accurate, spread damaging fire-type move. Without the right setup though, Torkoal lacks the ability to do a lot of damage because of its horrendous speed, since the power of Eruption varies based off of the user's current HP, so if it is already damaged before it attacks, Eruption will be significantly weaker. To get around this, it usually likes to work in Trick Room, but when paired with Lilligant, there is a very different form of speed control that you can use instead. Lilligant gets the ability Chlorophyll, which doubles its speed in Harsh Sunlight, and gets access to the move After You, which makes the target move immediately after the user. By using this on your own ally, this allows Torkoal to move at the same speed as Lilligant, essentially making it move first every time. So if you throw in a Choice Specs, Charcoal, Life Orb, Terra Fire, or other damage output booster of choice, Eruption will be at max power and will hit insanely hard. Hisuian Lilligant has pretty much the exact same game plan when next to Torkoal, but is just a physical attacker, so I didn't feel it was different enough to get a separate entry. They both get Sleep Powder and either Solar Beam or Solar Blade, powerful grass type moves that normally take a turn to charge but will go off immediately in Harsh Sunlight. Like IndeedeeRouge and FluChi-Mane Chi-Yu, Wide Guard stops Eruption, and neither of them have any protection against Fake Out, so you'd have to be willing to sacrifice your Terra or item slot to get around that. Torkoal still has strong single target damaging moves like Overheat and Earth Power, and a fast Sleep move on Lilligant is still very strong even if it's not accurate. I've heard fans call this duo LilliKoal, which I think is a perfectly fine name. Next, we have Maushold and AnnihiLape. Primeape and AnnihiLape have a signature move, Rage Fist, that functions like no other move in the game. It starts out at 50 base power and increases by an additional 50 every time the user is hit with a damaging move. Maushold also has a unique signature move Population Bomb, which is a multi-strike move that can hit up to 10 times. The strategy for this duo actually takes advantage of Maushold using a different multi-strike move, Beat Up. Beat Up is a multi-strike move that hits the same number of times as the number of non-fainted, non-statused Pokemon in the user's party. In VGC, where you bring 4 Pokemon to any given game, this move will hit up to 4 times. Where Lilligant targets its ally Torkoal with After You to make it move before opposing Pokemon, Maushold targets its ally AnnihiLape with Beat Up to boost the power of Rage Fist. AnnihiLape will typically use Bulk Up, or just go straight for the attack with Rage Fist on turn 1. Since this Maushold set usually does not have Population Bomb, it uses the ability Friend Guard instead of Technician. Friend Guard reduces the damage dealt to the user's ally by 25%, allowing for increased survivability when setting up AnnihiLape with Beat Up and Bulk Up. Speaking of increased survivability, Maushold, like Indeedee Female, also gets Follow Me, redirecting any attacks from AnnihiLape to Maushold. While Maushold doesn't have Prankster, it is still fast enough naturally to fire off Encore, Taunt, and Thunder Wave, which is arguably better in some cases to not have priority since it can't be blocked by priority blockers like the ones I mentioned with Chien-Pao and Dragonite. MausApe was probably the most common name I heard for this duo. Next, we have Whimsicott and Hisuian Typhlosion. This is a duo that really took off during VGC Regulation H, and it is similar to Lilligant Torkoal, where it involves a fire type using Eruption and a grass type doing some kind of supporting. As a fire ghost type with good but not crazy special attack and speed, Hisuian Typhlosion really enjoys the extra support that Whimsicott brings to the duo. Due to its prankster ability, Whimsicott can do a number of things for supporting and disrupting, but it typically does one of two things on turn 1 to massively support Typhlosion. Tailwind doubles the speed of the user's side of the field for the next 4 turns, which allows Typhlosion to move first and get off an Eruption at max HP. Sunny Day sets up the Harsh Sunlight, which boosts the damage of Fire-type moves by 50%, giving Typhlosion an even higher damage output. Typhlosion will usually either use the Choice Specs for increased damage and Whimsicott's Tailwind for speed control, or a Choice Scarf for speed control and Whimsicott's Sunny Day for increased damage. Charcoal is another good option since you'll mostly just be using Fire-type moves with an occasional Shadow Ball here and there, and Terra Fire is great for increased damage on any set. It really just depends on what you want, and you could even go all out on speed with Choice Scarf and Tailwind, or go all out on damage with Sunny Day and Choice Specs. For their name, I came up with WhimPhlosion. Next, we have Pelipper and Archaladon. Like the last entry, Pelipper and Archaladon really picked up steam in Reg H, but unlike the last entry, this duo takes advantage of rain instead of sun. Pelipper's ability Drizzle sets up the rain upon entry, and these two Pokemon are able to abuse the heck out of the benefits of rain with their moves. Pelipper uses the moves Hurricane and Weather Ball, and Archaladon uses its signature move Electro Shot, all of which have some unique interaction with rain. Hurricane is a special attacking flying type move, which is not a consistent move at all due to its 70% accuracy, but when used in the rain, it gains perfect accuracy. This makes it much more powerful at 110 base power, perfect accuracy, with a chance to confuse the target. Weather Ball is a very weak move outside of rain, only being a 50 base power normal type move, but in the rain, it increases to 100 base power and becomes water type. This boost is separate from the additional 50% boost that rain grants, by the way. For Archaladon, its signature move Electro Shot is a 130 base power, 100% accurate, special attacking electric type move that takes a turn to charge, raises the user's special attack by 1 stage during that charge, and then attacks on the next turn, with it attacking immediately in the rain. Being able to raise your stats and attack on the same turn is very powerful, and considering how difficult Archaladon is to remove due to its fantastic defensive typing and its ability Stamina, it is a very strong option. Pelipper gets Tailwind for speed control, and Wide Guard to protect from any spread moves, and Archaladon gets Stab Draco Meteor, which hits hard after some Electro Shot special attack boosts, and Body Press, which hits hard after some Stamina defense boosts. For this duo, I settled on the name ArchaLipper. Lastly, we have Cresselia and UrsaLuna. While Cresselia isn't even that slow, due to its other stats, typing, and move pool, its most common role is as a Trick Room setter and supporter. UrsaLuna is a slow Pokemon that hits like an absolute truck with a base attack stat of 140 and access to Stab Guts boosted Facade. While it takes some setup, as you will almost always have to protect for a turn for Flame Orb to activate, this basically one-shots anything in its path once you do have it set up. Now if you want spread damage, Cresselia's ability pairs perfectly well with UrsaLuna's best stab spread move. Earthquake is a spread damaging ground type move that also hits your ally, but since Cresselia is immune to ground from Levitate, this is a complete non-issue. Cresselia's signature move Lunar Blessing also works perfectly in Trick Room, as it will restore UrsaLuna's HP and its burn so it won't take residual burn damage, which happens after UrsaLuna has already attacked, since Cresselia is faster than UrsaLuna, so slower in Trick Room. At the end of the turn, UrsaLuna will then get burned again from the Flame Orb, but won't take burn damage as it just activated that turn. Cresselia can also boost UrsaLuna's damage output with Helping Hand, and if you really hate your opponent, you could also use Double Team or Ally Switch. I couldn't find any common names for this duo, but I came up with CresseLuna, which I think fits nicely. And those are some of the most potent duos in Scarlet and Violet VGC. Now before you go in the comments and say how I forgot Dondozo Tatsugiri, I intentionally decided to exclude them from this list because I don't really feel that they are in the spirit of how a traditional duo functions. They are absolutely still good and have been relevant in almost every Scarlet and Violet VGC format, but it turns the game into a 1 versus 2, and Tatsugiri literally does nothing after it jumps into Dondozo's mouth to raise its stats, unlike every other duo I mentioned that have unique synergy when working together at the same time. Anyway, let me know if there are any other strong Pokemon duos that I missed, or if you have some suggestions for the names of them. If you want to support me and my channel, the best way to do so is just by leaving a nice comment. I do genuinely read all comments, and will try my best to respond to as many as I can. You can also click the join button to become a member, and I made the cost as low as possible at 99 cents USD. Members get a badge next to their name and early video access. Keep in mind that these videos will be releasing on my normal schedule for non-members, so please don't feel obligated at all to join unless you really want to support me and you are financially capable of doing so. Huge thanks to all my members. I really appreciate your continued support for the channel. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.